Well, welcome, welcome. Um, Shooting the eclipse. And here we are, what, less than a month out? Anybody that's shooting the eclipse already knows what they're going to be doing, right? But here I am sitting about, talking about what we need to do to shoot the eclipse. Everybody that's shooting the eclipse knows what they're going to be doing, right? And Fred Espenek says in a rating of natural wonders on a scale of 1 to 10, a total eclipse is 1,000,000, so it's understandable that you'd want to take pictures of it. But to take pictures or not to take pictures, they talk about this in the run up to every total solar eclipse. If it's your first one, you shouldn't take any pictures. You ought to just take it in. But this is what the AAS says. Most experienced eclipse chasers recommend that first timers just watch. There's so much to see with your eyes, and all that sounds pretty good, except to the part that you'll be able to view countless other people's pictures and movies afterwards anyway. Well, I want to look at my pictures because I want to remember this thing. I want to have that link to some of my pictures. And there's all kind of reasons to shoot them. It's close by, relatively. It's not in Africa or somewhere. It's a day's drive away. You could get there. And it's the last continental U.S. eclipse until 2044. And being 70 years old, it might be my last eclipse, period. So that's why I want some pictures of it. It's easier than ever to shoot digital stills and video. This goes for any photography. If we can't get better at our photography, having the ability to see the picture we just shot, there ain't no hope for us. So it's an easy thing to do. And it's a tangible keepsake, and it hooks us up to those memories, and you can share your images. And this is key. You're going to meet some people along the way. If you go to some unknown destination, I just want to find a clear spot, you're going to run into some other people there, and you're going to meet those people, and you're going to remember them till the next eclipse probably. And you can do this thing. You can do pictures, and you can watch the eclipse because taking pictures is easy. I got an iPhone here. Taking pictures is easy. Taking the best pictures is always going to be harder than just taking pictures. Okay. Here in Raleigh, this is what the greatest eclipse will look like. Over 3/4 of the sun will be
in Raleigh. This is as good as you're going to see it.
3:16 in the afternoon.
3:16 in the afternoon.
So that is a very deep partial eclipse. So deep, in fact, you'll start to see some effects of the lighting changes. The sky, if you have a blue sky that day, which I'm sure we all will, gets a steely blue color when the obscuration gets to about 3/4 or so. So you'll start to see that, and you'll see the pinhole effects of the sun images through leaves and the little crescents on the sidewalk and stuff. Okay, right?
On that last picture here, or the one right now, how did you get the detail of the moon to show up without overexposing the solar crescent?
Well, that's during totality. That's me and a couple of friends in 2017. This one, this is a screenshot from Stellarium showing what I cheated. Yeah. We can always watch it on Stellarium if it's a day like today, Partial eclipse, is a good opportunity for a picture. This is the annular eclipse in May of 2012. I went out to New Mexico to the VLA thinking I would get the ring sun setting in line with the dishes. And there was one cloud in the sky that the sun, the moon went in front of the sun, and then this cloud moved in front of both of them at the same time, at the worst time. So by the time it came out from the cloud, which you can see the cloud at the top of the picture here, I had a deep crescent sun that was setting, so it was, just a couple of thousand miles there and back to get this non-annular picture. But, these two eclipses going into 2017, I gave a lot of programs to some folks who had never seen a total solar eclipse. But now a lot of people saw the one in 2017. Has everybody seen a total eclipse of the sun? Yeah. Okay, I was saying that prior to 2017, not a lot of people had seen one in the United States unless they traveled, overseas somewhere. This time, people know what to expect, and we can expect a lot more interest in it. Okay, particularly in Carbondale, Illinois. That's where the two eclipse paths cross. Those folks are thinking, what's the big deal? These things happen all the time. We just had one 7 years ago, so, or Paducah, Kentucky, it's this dilemma on whether to take pictures or not during the eclipse is nothing new. It happened way back in the 1860s. This guy right here, Warren de la Rue, he was British but his name is de la Rue. He was charged with going to an eclipse in Spain, I believe, in 1860. And he was an astronomer that did photography. He was an early astrophotographer, and he said he was so completely enthralled that he had to exercise the utmost self-control to tear myself away from a scene that was so impressive and magnificent. And then he said he had a feeling of regret when he turned, to his cameras. And he said, I remember that I wished I had not encumbered myself with apparatus. So he had this big camera that he'd spent years building to take to Spain to see this eclipse. Anyhow, so it's not a new thing, this deciding whether to take pictures or watch the eclipse or both. I'm telling you can do both, particularly with this one because it lasts almost 4.5 minutes. I was in the 1991 eclipse in Baja that lasted 6 minutes and 25 seconds. You could do anything. A guy in the motel room next to me went to the bathroom during totality and came back out, still able to do what he was doing. 6.5 minutes is a long time. 4.5 minutes, not so long, but over twice as long as 2017 eclipse. Okay. And this is Fred Hess in 1991 in Baja, and his philosophy is you take a picture and you take a look. Take a picture and you take a look. Granted, this was that 6.5 minute eclipse he was setting up for, but Fred was a long-time eclipse lecturer at the Hayden Planetarium in New York City. And he had seen 30-some eclipses. I think he saw the very first one there ever was. He died a few years ago. What a character he was. This is in Africa in 2001. But going back to this one, about a day's drive. If you were going to Indianapolis or southern Indiana, it would take you, about 10 hours to get there. And so it's fairly close to us. There's so many large cities in the path of this one that 32 million people won't have to go anywhere to see it. They just walk outside. Rather than get into a lot of nuts and bolts about exposures and stuff like that, I want to point you toward this guy's ebook. This is Alan Dyer's ebook that is $11 to download it. It's hundreds of pages of PDF. And I've got some links that we're going to put in, going to email to everybody. But this is a piece of work right here. He can tell you all about every aspect of photographing the eclipse. He came out with this last year, so he's talking about the October annular eclipse that's already over with, plus 2024. But man, what a treasure it is. All this stuff in one place. He can tell you how to process the images at the computer, the whole thing. As far as how much photography you're doing for the eclipse, we just think the eclipse is all around us. We think about the eclipse as being something in the sky with the eclipse sun and the corona around it. The eclipse is all around you if you've ever been to a total solar eclipse. There's the shadow effects, there's the colors in the sky along the horizon, there's the shadow sweeping in and then leaving the sky, sort of like a dark cloud, only it's not a dark cloud, it's the shadow of the moon. So depending on what you want to do, you'd want to kind of look at this type of equipment, the crowd in the landscape, camera and lenses, the shadow approaching, shadow bands, these little ripply shadows that you see a minute before totality, ordinary cameras and lenses. There'll be some planets near the eclipse sun. Jupiter and Venus will be in the sky. near the eclipse sun. Most any camera will capture that. Okay. Camera and scopes. Now we're talking about getting tight on the sun. And, the eclipse sun, the inner and outer corona, the prominences, the chromosphere, that's camera and telescopes, or cameras and long telephoto lenses. Digiscoping. Anybody ever done any digiscoping? That is when you hook a camera to one side of a binocular or a spotting scope, usually with some kind of hard connection. When you put your cell phone over an eyepiece of a telescope attempting to shoot a picture of the moon, that's digiscoping. Handheld, but no, you don't want to do that. You want some sort of hard connection in there. Eclipse video and audio. Eclipse video, I'm telling you, it is, you say it's like being there. Eclipse audio is being there. That's why you need to be with a bunch of other folks when you see the eclipse. Even if it detracts from your photography, and you need to be with some other folks. The last thing I want to do is see a total solar eclipse by myself. And then you process the eclipse imagery at the computer, and again, that's covered in Alan Dyer's PDF. Just great. But this is a diagram showing how big you can expect the eclipse sun to be with your various camera lenses. As you can see, it takes a long camera lens to fill the frame with the eclipse. This outer frame is a full frame digital camera, and the red frame is an APS size frame. So you get a telephoto effect of about 1.5 times if you use an APS size chip. So the sun is not very big, but we need about 2 or 3 sun diameters on either side of it, because that's where the solar corona is during totality, and we want to capture as much of that as we can. This exposure guide, I'm not going to dwell on this because it's out there. It's out there in multiple places on the internet, and they're all pretty much in agreement. So you can go to Fred Espenak's Eclipse Exposure Guide, or just Google Eclipse Exposure Guide, and you'll see something like this that have all of your exposure information right in front of you. And it'll get you in the ballpark with each aspect of the eclipse. Subjects, stuff to look for. Remember, it's not just the eclipse sun in the sky, it's the people and the observing site, shadow bands before and after totality. This is in the last minute before totality and in the minute after totality ends, when the sun is just a tiny slit. It's acting on, the Earth's atmosphere is acting on the light from that, and you get these ripply effects that sort of look like sunlight shining through the water on the bottom of a swimming pool. Okay, I've seen them at some eclipses, totally none at some others. So it's not a guarantee. I think the air has to be very clear. You need kind of a real hard blue sky to see shadow bands. If you got any haze or anything, there's less of a chance of seeing shadow bands. Video is the way to show shadow bands because they're kind of quivering, moving fast. Behavior of local animals and people. I was on in 2001, I was on an eclipse in Zambia. We were on a dairy farm, and as it got darker, all the cows were moving toward where they move when it got dark. And then they turned around and they moved back to where they were in the daytime. So stars and planets during totality. You've got a 50 or 35 millimeter lens on your camera and it's on a tripod, you're set up to do that. There'll be Venus and Jupiter several degrees. None of them will be very close to the sun this time, but they'll be several degrees apart. And in fact, they may become visible even before totality, especially Venus. You'll be able to see it. Photos showing narrow angle still and video of totality, and photos showing you in totality. Hopefully you got somebody that you care about sharing the eclipse with that could take some pictures of you during the eclipse. If not totality, just at the site. And then a post-eclipse celebration. That's important. There'll be one unless it's cloudy, which we're going to talk about that a little bit too. You know, not many people talk about that because we amateur astronomers are an optimistic bunch, if you haven't already noticed. The motto of our club is, what is it, Naveen? It's bringing amateur astronomy to the triangle since 1978 or something like that. There's a club in Florida and their motto is, I think the sky is clearing now. That's all it is. That's all it says. I don't remember what club it is, but I remember that motto. You know, they've had it for years. That's all it is. Just, I think the sky is clearing now. But during your eclipse photography, being able to see that picture on the back of the camera is everything. That tells you whether you're done taking pictures yet or whether you're just getting started. You need to be very careful with focus and making sure your camera is steady on a tripod. What ruins a lot of eclipse pictures is soft focus. They're almost in focus. Well, you know, it's almost 20 years before there's another one. You know, it'd be nice to get it in focus. But that is a blessing that you can see the image that you just shot. Because back in the film days, which I come from, it was a leap of faith every time you push the button, you know, and sometimes I didn't leap far enough. But this is the eclipse of 1991. Naveen?
So can I?
Okay. Okay.
So can I ask a question?
Yep.
Maybe it's more of a technical thing. So, when you're photographing the eclipse, you don't have your filters
No,
on.
we do not.
Correct?
Not during totality.
Yeah, during totality.
Not during totality.
So really, if you plan on photographing this, you're not looking through your telescope, you know, with the filters on, because you can't really look at it and take it off and then put it.
You need the filter on during the partial phases because you got to focus and you got to compose the picture. You got to get the sun in the middle, and you know you got to be able to deal with everything that you're going to be dealing with during totality except the filter.
Oh, okay.
And that filter comes off generally a minute or less before totality. You take the filter off.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
If you're photographing, let's say, with the totality, you don't need the filter, but once you start to see a slight bit of brightening on the right side,
Yeah,
you might get a quick shot of the diamond.
that's right. Then the filter goes on. Yeah, sure does.
Move the camera away quick.
That's right, Frank. Yeah.
However, if you're using a DSLR where you're looking through the viewfinder, which is the same as like through the lens of a telescope, you need a shield on the camera to keep the other eye from seeing an unfiltered sun.
Right. We're going to talk. That's right. So this is
Well, one more question. So
Sure.
I was going to ask about focus. You do focus before totality then?
Absolutely.
With the filter on and it doesn't.
Absolutely. And I don't want to use those 4 minutes and 20 seconds to focus. I
Okay.
want to already be focused.
My camera, it focuses best on my camera focuses best on a hard contrast line.
Yeah.
Typically vertical.
Yeah, but you don't want your camera, we're going to talk about that. You don't want your camera to do the focusing. You don't want your camera to do the focusing. You do the focusing. It's time to turn off that autofocus. It's not going to help you. It may nail it, but it may not. It may start searching, you know. You might spend 10 seconds of that 4 minutes and 20 some seconds searching. But this is a picture through a 5-inch refractor from the July 11th, 1991 eclipse from Baja, out on the beach there at Cabo San Lucas. This was called the seahorse prominence during that eclipse. Everybody got a picture of it, and they thought it looked like a seahorse. So it, you know, here years later, it's still the seahorse prominence from the 1991 eclipse. A wide angle shot, not through the telescope. This is just the camera on the ground behind us. This is in Africa in 2001, and it's a camera with a wide angle lens that is taking a picture every 30 seconds during totality. I'm not messing with it. In fact, this is me right here. This blurry mass right here is me at a telescope. But you know, the sun was about 30 degrees high. Next month, it'll be 67 degrees high if you're in Texas. It'll be very high in the sky. But this one, you needed some nice foreground object. And it was easy to incorporate that. So there was this dead termite-eaten tree there on this dairy farm. And I said, well, I don't know where the rest of these guys are going to be, but I'm going to be under that tree. So that gave me a nice foreground object during totality. And you can see the 360-degree sunset colors here, not a cloud in the sky. But this is what you get in the last few minutes before totality. If you're, we're probably going to have some leaves on the trees here by April, you know, and the pinhole images that are formed by the spaces between the leaves are going to be cast on the sidewalk and on buildings. And a lot of people bring a colander to the eclipse, you know, with the holes in it and hold it up. And or if you got a straw hat, a big straw hat with a perforated brim on it, that will make little crescent suns all over your shoulders and face. You know, so that's something you can shoot with any camera. But through the telescope is a good way to view it if you have the right filter. This is a 3.5-inch Questar, and it has a sub aperture filter there. This is from Africa in 2001. And it's a very good view of the partial phases, and then you can pop that filter off without any disturbing it. This is a wider shot through a telescope through the 5-inch refractor from Cabo San Lucas in 1991. This is the film image. Okay, it was 1991. I didn't have a nice digital camera. I had a bunch of film, and with a 6.5-minute eclipse, I was changing film. Yeah, I'm changing film. I'm swapping a Barlow lens in and out of it. You know, just all the time in the world. It seemed like, you know. This is with a 500 millimeter lens from 1991. We had some. This is the setup that I was using in 1991. This is a 5-inch refractor out on the beach there outside the hotel. And it was looking at a 6-inch flat mirror right here that was driven by a clock drive here. It's something I cobbled together from years of junk that I had. And this is what I shot those pictures with of the eclipse. Right here? Frank's gonna get pictures of the eclipse, whether it's cloudy or not, you know.
That's also what you like to be able to practice.
That's right. Well, no, you can practice on the moon. We're going to talk about that. But this is outside with the refractor with the mirror down here, and that's what I used in 1991. It would break. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's way back, way back. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is not gray hair either, but. Now, getting back to some current non-film stuff, this is last year, the last eclipse in 2017, and I was in Silverton, Oregon. I chickened out on going to South Carolina or Western North Carolina because the cloud cover was, you know, a little dicey for me. So I went out to Oregon where there was twice the likelihood that I would see something, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. 72 degrees, the eclipse is 10 o'clock in the morning, and not a cloud in the sky. So versus 100 degrees in South Carolina and clouds here and there. But this is us at the site. This is one of my corona shots. I was using a 102 millimeter refractor, 700 millimeters of focal length. And this is a stack of about 9 different exposures of various lengths. So I can see the inner and outer corona and the prominences. But it only lasted like a minute 45 out there. It was what, 2:27 in South Carolina, but it only lasted a minute and 45 seconds out there. Now, the C word is not for clear. The likelihood that it will be cloudy, no matter how many thousands of miles you've traveled, is always present. And what do you do about that? Well, remember, we're optimistic, you know. I think the sky is clearing now, you know. So I'm going to Texas next month, going to Texas Hill Country in April. And we think we might see a tornado and an eclipse on the same trip, you know, because this is a bad time of year for the middle of the country, particularly going down toward the Gulf, you know. And it's really not that great, you know. So anyhow, you've probably seen this already. Blue is good and orange is bad as far as cloud cover. And we're going to be right here west of Austin in Fredericksburg. So we're all kind of but this doesn't mean a thing. It could be clear in Buffalo and it could be overcast where I am at eclipse time. Because you're not really looking to dwell too much on this, because we all know it has to be clear for 4.5 minutes where the sun is. That's a taller order than saying, hey, well, it looks pretty clear down here. No. It's got to be clear for 4.5 minutes where the sun is. You know, it's dicey. It's dicey. But this is 2019 on April the 8th, and that you know, coincides pretty well with that previous graphic, you know, because down here, pretty clear, Mexico's totally clear, and then the closer you get to the northeast, it clouds up. But some years since 2019, it's been just the opposite. So what do you do? That's why the best part of any total solar eclipse, it's not, to me, it's not the shadow rushing in, it's not the diamond ring, it's not the people whooping and hollering, it's not the corona during totality. It's 5 minutes before totality, and I look around and there's not a cloud in the sky, and I know for the first time I'm really going to see this thing. Because you don't know that. You don't know that. I'm fortunate to have been able to see all 5 total solar eclipses that I've seen. 2 annular eclipses, I was clouded out in 1994 and 2012. And I traveled thousands of miles to get to where I was. You know? You got it, Naveen?
So I was in Highland, North Carolina,
Yeah.
and it was cloudy.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, well, we'll have a party. There was a party at the park. It cleared at totality. So you never know.
It cools during totality, and that makes the clouds thin sometimes. You know, during the 1991 eclipse at Baja, there was a guy from Fort Worth, Texas there sitting next to me, and he was a weather freak. You know, he was making weather observations and temperature readings every minute of the eclipse. I mean, partial phase and everything. He's writing them down. You know, temperature dropped 12 degrees during that 6.5 minute totality. So, you know, that affects the column of air above you and the clouds.
You've got a upslope, and the air is coming up that upslope. It can condense into clouds.
It can, no doubt about it. But you got to have filters. You say, well, I'm shooting a total eclipse. Why do I need a filter? You need a filter so you can focus your camera before totality. So you can aim your camera before totality. Okay. You need these silly little glasses, which are 3 times what they were 3 months ago right now, if you're going to buy any of them. This is a good filter to go over your cameras. This is Botter solar film. It has a density of 5, and you can use it visually or with a camera. And it's also available in a lighter density, in a 3.8 density that you cannot look through. But you can put it over a digital camera and look at the image on an electronic screen. but you can't use it visually. I just bought a 8.5 by 11 sheet of this, and it was about $40. And I can still get it. I got it a couple of months ago. I don't know about now. You got this pinhole projection method. How many of you ever tried that? Wasn't it just a totally awesome thing to see that little thing? No, it wasn't. You know, the image of the sun is only a little bigger than the pinhole. You know, what you need to do is pinhole reflection. And this is good whether you're observing or photographing it. You take a mirror, like a makeup mirror. You know, it's got a magnifying mirror on one side and a flat mirror on the other. Use the flat mirror. And you cover it with black paper and with a little dime-sized hole in the paper. Okay, and you set it out in the sunlight on eclipse day, and you can direct that little spot of sunlight anywhere you want it. It's a pinhole image, but it's a reflected pinhole image. You can shove it underneath the eave of a house or something that's 50 yards away, and the image will be several inches across. Okay, it's called pinhole reflection. This is during the 2017 eclipse. This nice little shed here was near our site. And I just set up the little pinhole mirror there and send it over there. You have to move it every once in a while to keep it where you want to have it. But that's a great way to observe the eclipse indirectly with a large size image that a lot of people can see at one time. You can kind of look over at the shed and say, hey, where are we at right now? Okay, and then I can, you know, do that. It's a great way to keep tabs on the partial phases. You can also do it with binoculars. You get a magnified image that way. If you cover one lens of the binoculars, otherwise you'll have two suns there. That's a good way to do it. This is my site in 2017 with my refractor. I have one of those Botter filters on the front of it. You want to be able to take the filter off and on very quickly. You know, I had a little sliding thing. It was on a piece of cardboard, and I just slid it out. And then there was no filter there, but I had to do something with it. You know, and that took me a couple of seconds to do something with it. So I've got a hinged arrangement this time that I can just flop it back and be all right as long as it's not windy. But this is my refractor with my camera here. And this is a camera with a 500mm mirror lens on it that I did video with. But this is the kind of the culmination of all of those pictures shot during totality. One stop apart for 9 pictures, all layered up. And it really does give you the visual impression of how you see the eclipse when you look at it through binoculars. Because the inner corona is several stops brighter than the outer corona. Okay, so not one exposure can capture all that, you know. If you've ever tried to take a picture of the crescent moon with earth shine on it, you know that one exposure can't capture the earth shine and the sunlit crescent because there's too much variation there. So this is another view here. This is third contact, just as the diamond ring appeared at the end of totality. Video is the way to go, the way to go. I've got some video there, but from 2017. But one thing I noticed from video from years ago that I was watching, there's more colorful language in today's videos than there were a few years ago. So it's, you know, you gotta, depends on who you're around, you know, but I was with about 30 people from Oregon, and they were whooping it up, and there were 3 shaman there who were chanting and beating drums, and I asked my friend who we were staying with out there. I said, "Well, what's with the shaman?" He said, "Well, that's so it'll be clear. You know, the shaman will be talking and chanting, and the sky will be clear," and it was. So we tipped the shaman before they left, but made for some great video with those folks around us. But DSLR cameras, if you have one, you're in great shape. Now, I can't stress that enough. If you've got one with a movable screen on the back, you're in much greater shape because you're not on the ground looking at it. Because you're going to need to focus and compose your picture, not by looking through the camera, but on the screen. You're going to have your camera in live view. Okay? Got to be in live view because you need to focus in live view. That's the way to get the sharpest focus, manual focus. You can also buy a little hood like this one here that can go on that screen, and you'll be shielded from the light. And a good thing to do to find out if you want one of those hoods or need one is go out and try to, put your solar filter on your telescope, and you're looking at it on your camera. Can you see, how well can you see that image on the screen on a sunny day? It's like me, not very good. But if you can constrain the light from around the screen and have a magnifying lens there, and you can get in there and, you get it on a sunspot or the edge of the sun, and you can really tweak that focus and get it as sharp as it can be. And that's what you want. However long it takes you to do that, that's what we need to do. Because that is the thing that kills eclipse pictures is soft focus, soft focus. Got to have one of these. Got to have a remote release. I like the wired kind that doesn't require a battery. Okay. I know I could buy a fresh battery, and if I had one of those that was battery powered, that's what I would need to do. But I just like the idea of being able to push the button and something happens and I don't have to touch the camera. That you're going to be making fairly long exposures, a second or less during totality. So this is no time to see how gingerly you can press the button on your camera. This is not a day to see what you can get away with. You know what I mean? Get what you need to do it. Set your image quality to RAW. Even if you don't know what a RAW file is or why it's better than a JPEG, still shoot the RAW files. If you go in your menu there, you can shoot a JPEG and a RAW every time you press the button. Okay? The RAW file has so much more information in it that you can latch onto with your computer and sweeten it up like nobody's business. And the JPEG does not. JPEG does not. Okay? You want to set the image size as big as it is, as big as it can go. It's probably already that size anyway, but you want to go to the largest size that your camera can produce pixel-wise. This is a 45 megapixel camera right here. I want it on the largest size setting. Your ISO sensitivity, you want this auto ISO sensitivity off. You need to be able to set the ISO yourself. You don't want the camera making that decision for you. As the light falls, it jacks up the ISO to 1600 or something like that. You don't want that. You want it to stay on whatever you set it on. Okay. Manual focus. You got a focus, autofocus, manual focus switch on your telephoto lens you're using, put it on manual. I'm not saying your $10,000 lens that's autofocus. I'm not saying it doesn't have good autofocus, but there should be no change in the focus during the eclipse. The sun and the moon, any way you stack it, are at infinity. I mean, the moon's a little closer, but they both have the same focus. There shouldn't be any variability in the focus at all. That's why it should be manually focused and taped down so you don't move it during the eclipse. This is not something you should be worrying about every time you press the button. Is it going to be in focus? No, you focused it with that filter on ahead of time, and you know that it's right. Tape it down, move on. In live view, right here, you say you're in the partial phases of the eclipse. You have this on your camera screen in live view on the back. This little red square here, you can zoom in on part of the sun. You could zoom in on this little cusp of the crescent right here and critically focus that little sharp horn of the crescent right there, and then you're good to go. Tape it down. Okay.
Photography shot from 2017 was ISO 1600, 1/640th of a second.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. You can. That's right. That's right. Now, a smartphone, there's a lot of smartphones at eclipses. And a smartphone nowadays, if you've got the top of the line smartphone, which I've got an iPhone 8, it was top of the line about 8 years ago, I think. But if you've got an iPhone 15 Pro Max, with all the optical zoom that you can get, plus the digital zoom, this is how big the moon can be. You know, not bad, but keep in mind, that's digital zoom working. It's just taking a hunk out of the middle of the picture. But you can get,
Picture, touch the screen, and you'll see a little star about midway in the bottom.
Mhm.
Pull it down to darken it, so it won't be that bright.
well, you can get some software for your camera. You can get an app for your camera, and you can control that exposure. This is with a Samsung. It's got what, an 80x zoom on a Samsung? Man. Oh, I would hope so, yeah. But this is with a phone. This is with a phone. They didn't bring a whole satchel full of stuff. They just brought the phone. Okay.
Also matter about, does it also matter about the software that's in the phone?
I don't know.
Or is
I
it
haven't.
just a physical phone? You look at those features in a physical phone.
I haven't shot an Eclipse with the phone, Ann,
Oh,
but
okay.
you can buy some software that allows you to control the focus and the exposure manually. Yeah, Nightcap is a good one. Good app to have.
For Android, there's Deep Sky Camera.
Deep Sky Camera,
Used it.
okay. Yep. This is $15 right here. This is Solar Snap. For $15, you get 2 pair of Eclipse glasses, and you get a little sliver of Eclipse filter with some Velcro spots that you can Velcro the filter over your camera's lenses. And there's an app that you download to use it with, called Solar Snap. Just for cell phones, just for cell phones. Afocal photography is another way to do it. This, you need to stay away from this right here. I've got one of these, and I bought it just to try to see what I could do with it. Man, you don't need this. It's about $27. It's a little monocular telescope, and it's got a wide angle and a fisheye lens, all for $27, and this little clothespin thing with a hole in it that you're supposed to put over the lens of your camera. Don't buy it. Don't buy it, because it's not only not very rigid, but the focus is soft, there's false color, and the magnification is too great. Okay? Don't waste your time on this. It's it's $27 I spent just so I could share that with all of you. But this right here is worth having. This is a little cell phone adapter that clamps your phone to your eyepiece of your telescope. Now that's kind of cool, but you need a little wireless Bluetooth remote to trigger your phone. You don't need to be touching the phone while you're doing this picture during the eclipse. But that is a viable device right there, unlike this here. So, and it costs less too. This was only about $11. But this is a step up from that. This is using spotting scopes. This is called digiscoping. And a lot of hunters use it to do long close-up pictures of deers before they kill them, with their phone. You see them out there and they've got a phone on one of these spotting scopes on a tripod, and they're pretty decent quality pictures, but if it's a rigid mount that puts the eyepiece and the phone mount together, and it clamps your phone into position so it doesn't move, and you can get a little remote here. You can get these on Amazon, and they're between $20 and $50. This is an afocal picture made with a 70mm telescope and a Nikon Coolpix 990 camera in 2001 over Africa. Okay, so this is a camera looking into a telescope eyepiece, and this is what we shot it with. This is the little Coolpix camera. It was the thing to have in 1990. It had this little joint in the middle, that you could turn the lens and all kind of stuff. It cost about $1,000. It was a 2.5 4 megapixel camera, I think it was. The batteries would last about 20 minutes, AA batteries, and it would last about 20 minutes. But this is what that picture was made with in Zambia that day. The reason we took this, it were weight restrictions on the travel. We could only take 33 pounds of anything with us to Africa. So Meade Instruments loaned us about a half dozen of these scopes, and all the tour leader people got one and ahead of time and figured out how to couple this. It's a hard coupling, threaded coupling here from the back of the scope to the eyepiece. You had to get a certain eyepiece that had threads on the top of it where you could screw this coupling on, and that would screw on the back of the scope. So, but this is a digiscope Eclipse right here. This is Nightcap. That's for iPhones that you can download and adjust the exposure with your camera. You need a tripod too. This, again, this is not the time to test your limits. Okay, well, I'm pretty steady with a camera, you know, with a 500 millimeter lens. I can just hold it, you know, I'm steady. No. This is not the time to prove that. This is the time to get a tripod. And you need a tripod that can point at the sun. Remember that if you're out in Texas, the sun is 67 degrees high. This tripod right here it's not pointed anywhere near 67 degrees high, but the handle is colliding with the tripod already. Guess what day would be a bad day to find that out? April the 8th, right? So you can do a couple of things. You can turn the camera around on the tripod head and have the handle pointed up, and then you can reach that high angle. But then you got to reach around if you're going to change the position, or you can do this. You can get you a right angle something. This is a shelf bracket, and put it on there. And then you're not tilting the tripod so high. The mass that the tripod is carrying, your camera and the lens, is more over the center of the tripod, so it's more stable, and it lets you point it at the sun. Okay? All kind of tripod heads. This one like this is what a lot of nature photographers use. You know, if you got a camera with a long lens on it, by the time you get to 67 degrees, that long lens is going to be hitting this part of the tripod. Okay, it's great for shooting a bird in flight going left to right across your field of view, but not so good at the eclipse. This is a video tripod, which could work. This one has the same elevation problem as the one with the handle on it, the long handle on it. And this is a ball tripod. A guy that I worked at the newspaper with that I've known for 30 years, he and a bunch of his friends got together and were going to go to the 2017 eclipse because they were together for the 1970 eclipse. So they were going to go down there, and he had a 600 millimeter lens, and he had a tripod with a ball head, and he tried to point it at the eclipse sun during totality, and the ball, it just flopped, you know, and he was never able to acquire the sun throughout that 2.5 minutes of totality. This is the way to go, is a geared head. They cost between $200 and $350, but you turn the knobs and you can make very incremental adjustments. This guy here on the ship in 1998 had a geared head, but he didn't take a tripod. I personally I know him well, but I don't know what he was thinking. But he took this geared head and a clamp, a super clamp, and clamped it on to one of the light fixtures on the ship's deck. So all he had to do was turn these knobs, because the ship would roll, take about 30 seconds to roll. So I got in there and figured it out, you know, before totality, that I could do this, and then for about 30 seconds, and then do that. And I would time my slowest exposures at the time when the extreme ends of the roll, you know. But they are the ones to have. If you already have one, you're in good shape. If you really want to do it upright, they're worth buying for the eclipse. See, this is what I'm thinking about taking to the eclipse with with a telephoto lens and a small telescope. And there's my geared head right there. Okay? Focus, practice practice on focus. You know, you need to go out and shoot the moon and the sun. Okay? Remember Ethel Merman? I got the sun in the morning and the moon at night, you know? You got to go out with your rig that you're taking to the eclipse and shoot the moon, particularly this week, because we got what a crescent moon in the west this week. If it ever clears up. Yeah, it's supposed to clear tomorrow though. That crescent moon with that range of brightness between the dark earthshine lit portion of it and the sunlit part is a lot like the eclipse during totality, because the corona is so bright inside. So you can't have a better target to practice on other than the eclipse. The sun, make sure you can take whatever you're going to use, point it at the sun or the moon, and consistently get it in focus. It's one thing to get it in focus when you're out there in your backyard, you know, and you're all by yourself. What if there's 50 people around you and they're whooping it up and the light is fading, the light's dropping? You know, who knows what's going to happen? You need to be able to do it and know, and do it repeatedly, and make sure that you can do that before eclipse day. See, this is the earthshine, earth-lit crescent moon through the telescope. Great target to practice on. Any crescent moon with earthshine is a good target to practice on. Okay, you need to make a range of exposures between 1,000th of a second and 2 seconds. Make sure you can do that. Adjust the ISO accordingly. Focus on the zoomed in image. Use live view, use a tripod, use a remote release. Do it until you get a good result. If you don't, you're not done trying yet. You're not done taking pictures yet. Okay? If it's your first eclipse, don't try to go head over heels with photography, particularly if you've never done anything like this before. If you're just a well, you know, not everybody's got one of those, but if photography to you has been this, don't go out and buy a bunch of high-end stuff and try to make it work in time for the eclipse. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. Don't go by yourself. Be mobile on the day before the eclipse. Okay? Look.
Setting on the camera that you wouldn't even think of is sharpness and contrast.
Right.
The brights. You can get the dark areas to show up without overexposing the brights.
That's right. That's why you need to shoot raw. You need to shoot raw images with your camera, because it's got all that information from the lightest light to the darkest dark. Constantly check cloud cover predictions. You got what are some good sites? Windy, atmospheric, windy. Yeah.
So I've got a question online.
Okay.
Set your fine focus in the morning as the sun rises to be, it becomes brighter and the clarity of the sky may change. So do recheck of your focus periodically.
Absolutely. I would focus just before first contact, just before the moon starts to take a bite out of the sun. Make sure I'm focused then, because the sun will be well up by then. And there won't be any extinction problems near the horizon or anything like that. It'd be good to go. This is some of the scenes from Oregon there with our festive crowd out in 2017. And this is after the eclipse. You don't really need to go anywhere after the eclipse, not until maybe the next morning. Yeah, it's really something. This is Oregon, and they're not used to an additional 1 million people being in Salem, Oregon. So same way with Texas, I'm sure. If you got Adobe Photoshop, I'm including a link by this guy, Russell Preston Brown, that shows how to compile a series of different exposures into one image. There are other ways to do it too. And that's something all of that stuff is something we need to think about before we shoot it, if we want to shoot it. But it can be easy or as hard as you want it to take pictures of the eclipse. You know, I think many times back during the 80s, I'm covering the ACC tournament in Greensboro, and there's a guy in a Pepsi uniform that comes up to me, and I'm sitting there on the baseline with all my cameras and all, and he comes up to me and said, "Hey man, this looks like a pretty good gig you got here. You know, is it hard to take pictures?" You know, and I thought about that many times since then, and it's not hard to take pictures. You know, people do it every day. Taking the best pictures will always be harder than taking pictures casually. It just will. It just will. You have to know more. You have to have the right stuff. It'll always be tougher than just taking pictures. But the eclipse has such a wide range of photo opportunities. Something in there is going to be very easy to do with a smartphone that is going to be very memorable for you. It'll be a memorable picture for you. So that's the reason to do it right there, I think. I'd be taking pictures of an eclipse, whether I spent my life as a professional photographer or not. You know, I would still want some pictures from the eclipse. Okay. Anything else?
Picture camera here, it uses a very small sensor.
Right.
Where it can get these telescope magnifications.
That's right.
Extended only 3 inches and no loss of light whatsoever.
Yeah.
Have a telephoto lens,
Yep.
allowing even handheld type pictures with.
You don't need to be holding the camera in your hand during totality. I can tell you that right now. Well, not with any of them. You need a tripod. You need a remote release. End of story. You know? Dan, you got some online?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you done with your picture?
Yep.
Okay. Can you go wrap around and go to about the third one where you were in the desert on a horse with no, where you took a picture with the camera on the ground, a whole bunch of you were. Yeah.
This one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
No. Way back, almost
Way back?
about third from the front.
Third from the front. Okay. Oh, the termite tree. Oh yeah, I remember the termite tree. Because the farmer, it was a dairy farm we were at, and the farmer went out and mowed and shoot all the puff adders away before we set up there that day. I remember them.
So the question is, once you get there, did the ground camera remain unfocused throughout the eclipse?
No, the ground camera was on autofocus.
Okay.
The ground camera, short lenses, not long telephoto lenses, short lenses, autofocus is good to go.
Unshielded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be good to go.
I missed this question when he went by there earlier, so I
Okay.
apologize to Doug, but also
Yeah,
to you.
I wasn't worrying about, I just let it run. It had a built-in intervalometer and I just let it run. And it shot, I forget how many frames it shot, but I had a 36 exposure roll of film, right? So I wasn't going to shoot any more than 36 shots. So I was timing it out to whether it would last through totality every 5 or 10
You didn't have a
seconds.
shield on this or anything?
Didn't have a filter on this, no,
Okay.
no.
A lot of these cameras that have what's called a peaking effect on manual focus, where you can set it to where you'll see a little white outline.
Yeah, yep, mhm.
Better focus.
Yep. Okay, any other questions, Joe?
Using the smartphone and then do the tripod, okay. I was wondering about using the smartphone and just running video, so set up the tripod
Yeah,
and then just start shooting video for 4 minutes and then maybe post-process that afterwards.
that's what I'm gonna do. Although I'm not doing it with a cell phone. My wife has a camera sort of like the one Frank has right here. She has a P1000 camera and it shoots 4K video. I'm gonna have it looking at the sun during totality, zoomed out to about 1,000 millimeters or so. And I'm going to be doing 4K video there.
Is that going to be taking raw video?
No, it's 4K,
Okay.
but it's regular. It's not any raw
Not a lot
video.
of planetary.
You know, that reminds me, Naveen, I don't know of anyone that's used any of the deep sky cameras like we use, or planetary cameras like we use to shoot a total solar eclipse. I guess you could do it, but everyone's using DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, not the the ASI 2600s or something like that. I've never heard of anyone doing that.
I'll be using it's a tube tech based camera with the IMX 571. So
Okay, okay.
I've used it for some solar and lunar stuff as well. So
Yeah.
it works fine. It's
Yeah.
just you don't have like the viewfinder to focus. You got to do something through the computer.
How many frames per second your camera can shoot is important too, because if you've got an older camera that doesn't have a very large buffer, you might shoot a burst of 7, and then your camera has to think about it for 10 or 15 seconds or so before it gives you back control of the camera. So you need to know that before April the 8th. How much of a burst can you do?
Similar personal story. So I have an intervalometer for my DSLRs I've used. It has to have a delay between pictures of at least 4 seconds. It just doesn't save pictures.
That's right.
So test beforehand.
Yeah,
Take pictures of your cat. It doesn't.
that's right. That's right. Anything, just let it run and make sure it's doing what you need it to do before April the 8th. Also, don't wait until 3 days before the eclipse to shoot, the sun or the moon. You know why? Because it'll be cloudy all those 3 days. So,
That tests for focus.
absolutely.
Take a picture, pull up the picture, and then hit the zoom. On the Nikon, it automatically goes to 3x.
That's right.
Yeah, but if it's good and sharp at 3, a great picture it'll be.
That's right. That tells you whether you're done taking pictures yet or whether you're just getting started. So being able to see that picture as soon as you take it. Red across, okay. Yeah, that's an aircraft contrail at sunset that happened to be drifting across the moon. That's Jupiter up there at the right. Yeah.
So just letting you guys know, LaJoy's telling us that he's going to use his Vespera. And Doug Lively said that he used his MC678 to capture the one in October.
Okay.
And he's donating that camera to me to take to Texas for this one. He just doesn't know it.
Yeah. Well, I hope you got some clear sky to practice with it before April the 8th there. So. Yeah. Well, yeah, he's probably already responded to it. But yeah, you need to practice. You need to practice. This is no time to shake off cobwebs or anything. This is the real deal. It could be the only eclipse you ever see or the last one you ever see.
And Steve Goodman's going to use his 2600 MC along with his DSLR. Doug said he'll send me the box.
Okay.
I'm sure. Make sure you got all your equipment on now, otherwise the stores will be sold out.
But I'm going to Texas. I'm on a Sky and Telescope 5-night tour to Austin, Texas for the eclipse. And on eclipse morning, they bus us 2 hours to Fredericksburg to be near the center line. My wife is, yes, she is going to be a mule for me, yeah. But, weather's dicey though. I told my wife we might see a tornado and an eclipse on the same trip, so it's a bad time of year to count on a clear sky, particularly in the middle of the day, because the eclipse happens, the sun is crossing the meridian during totality, I think, where we're going to be. So it's way up there, and it'll just be interesting. I'll tell you that. So there's 225 of us going, so from all over the country. So I'll let you know if let's see, is some more eclipse horror stories. One that has to do with focus. My dentist went to South Carolina in 2017. He had a 500 millimeter mirror lens that you turned the whole barrel to focus it. And he had a filter that I gave him for that lens to take to the eclipse. And he focused through the filter prior to totality. When he took the filter off, he turned the lens a little bit. And he shot all of his pictures out of focus. There's that, and the guy that went to South Carolina that had the tripod head problem, you know, that I've known. There's another guy I've known for about as long that was using this automated Eclipse orchestrator software, where he had 5 cameras that are hooked up to his laptop with the USB cables, and it is timing the eclipse for his location and automatically shooting the correct exposures at the correct time while he just watches the eclipse. And he set up outside of Columbia in 2017 and got everything set up. And somehow a kid or something bumped his tripod leg and put it about 2 degrees off the sun. So he got no images of the eclipse. No images of the eclipse. Yeah. All 3 of these guys, I have to say, have outstanding character, because if that had been me, I would have never told anybody. You know, if they're telling me about it, I would have never told them. I said, I blacked out, man. I don't remember what happened, but you know, but they have outstanding character, which I've always known that about all 3 of them. But what a tough afternoon in the moon shadow when that happens. But anyhow, yeah.
So Johnny, when I went by Carbondale on my way
Yeah.
from St. Louis I passed, and my wife looked over at me and said, "Are you sure about this?" Because I passed Carbondale where they were getting in that big old arena.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't hear, a cloud covered
I
the
heard
arena.
it was a bad day in Carbondale. Yeah.
Yep. And where we were couldn't have been more perfect. But
Yeah.
but it was the look of my wife going, "Are you sure?" Because there's 30,000 people in this Coliseum or whatever.
I have, we got to get out of here, don't we, Naveen? Yeah, okay. I have some more slides of the 2 annular eclipses I was clouded out on 18 years apart that are kind of painful to relive, but I'll pass on that. Maybe at the imaging meeting you can hear about it. Yeah. I can not cry, but it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to be clouded out. And the only thing I can tell you is when you're driving home, go by some good restaurants or something, you know, but it's all right. Thank you all.